Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie Last Holiday, 2006, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. In a world where every moment feels scripted and every expectation weighs heavy like a millstone, our heroine bursts onto the screen with such bright energy that you almost forget how dark her discovery will soon become. From the very first frame, you sense that a shift is coming. Laughter poised on the edge of tears, hope that flutters like a wounded bird daring to fly, and a promise that no matter how routine life seems, surprises lurk just around the corner. The warm glow of a bustling department store, the creak of polished wood under well-worn shoes, and the hum of daily life all set the stage for a journey that will sweep us from the ordinary into a realm where every moment feels like a precious gift. We're guided by a magnetic presence whose every smile conceals depths yet to be fathomed and whose every glance hints at a secret revelation waiting to break free. As you settle in, prepare to be whisked away on a whirlwind of discovery, heartache, and transformation, where the line between dreams and reality blurs, and where one woman's simple quest for connection becomes a testament to the power of living fully when time stands still. The film opens on a crisp morning in the heart of the city, where frigid air and early light mingle in an unexpected dance. Our protagonist strides through crowded aisles, her laughter echoing against the high ceilings, as she chats with customers and shelves merchandise with practiced ease. It's impossible not to be enchanted by her unguarded warmth and the way she seemingly radiates compassion, every gesture tender, every greeting genuine. Yet beneath that sunlit smile lies a woman weary from routine, bound by invisible scripts that dictate her every move. She's long mastered the art of predictability, of slipping into the rhythms that keep the world spinning smoothly, but deep inside her heart she hungers for something more profound, a sense of real belonging, a moment of genuine connection that transcends the mundane. As coins clink in the register and clocks tick away, she can't shake the sense that she's standing on a threshold, toes curled over the edge of something vast and unknown. Little does she know, fate has chosen this very day to deliver both the cruelest blow and the most extravagant gift, setting her on a path that will test the limits of her courage, her joy, and her belief in miracles. A chance encounter with a mysterious doctor reveals that what our heroine once thought was a minor ailment is, in fact, a life-altering diagnosis. The news crashes into her like a sudden storm, stealing her breath and scattering her plans to the winds. Gone is the steady hum of daily routine, replaced by an urgent clock ticking down her days. For a moment, the world tilts, and she stands at the brink of despair, her mind racing through regrets and unspoken wishes. Yet even as grief threatens to engulf her, a flicker of defiance sparks within, a refusal to let fear dictate the terms of her existence. She vows to seize every remaining moment, to cast aside self-doubt and embrace the fullness of life with reckless abandon. And so, in a whirlwind of determination, she abandons her familiar home and her part-time paycheck, trading coupons and calendars for champagne and couture. The old maps and timetables that once charted her daily chores are tossed aside, replaced by itineraries scribbled in the margins of a heart that suddenly pulses with possibility. What follows is an odyssey of laughter and tears, of unexpected friendships and private reckonings, where every sunrise feels like a benediction and every sunset a celebration. She checks into a grand European hotel, an opulent palace of marble and crystal chandeliers, where staff in starched uniforms bow at her every request. Here, beneath gilded ceilings and amidst gardens that bloom beneath a benevolent sun, she dares to dream again. Breakfast arrives on silver platters, champagne flutes tinkle with anticipation, and orchestras serenade each evening beneath a moonlit sky. The staff, initially perplexed by her willingness to splurge extravagantly, soon find themselves enchanted by her warmth. She shares stories of her life in the small town she left behind, the bookstore where she once worked, the stray cat she fed in the alley, the holiday dinners she always cooked for lonely neighbors. In return, the concierge confesses her own secret, a longing to see snow for the first time. The chef, a taciturn soul forged behind boiling sauces and sizzling pans, admits that he has lost the spark that once fueled his culinary dreams. And as she listens, her own burdens lighten, transformed by empathy into a bridge that spans every gulf. Each new friendship becomes a lesson in the art of living fully, teaching her that joy multiplies when shared and that kindness can turn the coldest stone into a warm hearth. Yet just as the journey seems destined to unfold in nothing but blissful reverie, a twist appears that threatens to unravel her plans. A letter arrives, its seal bearing the crest of her hometown's mayor, summoning her back for an emergency that demands her presence. Torn between the intoxicating lure of this final adventure and the pull of unfinished responsibilities, she stands poised between two worlds. To stay in this palace of wonder feels like treason to her own life story, so many threads still to be woven. But to return too soon would feel like shattering the fragile glass of hope she has so carefully tended. This moment of choice, pregnant with consequence, crackles with the electric tension of possibility. She must decide whether to cling to the promise of fleeting joy or dive headlong into the obligations she left behind. The weight of her decision presses upon her chest, and in that electric instant, you feel every pulse of her heart as she summons the courage to follow the compass of her soul beyond this crossroads. Secrets begin to reveal themselves in unexpected ways. The doctor who delivered her prognosis harbors his own hidden grief, and it is through sharing her lavish escapades that he finds a semblance of healing. The suave gentleman she dined with under candlelight turns out to have scars of his own, losses that mirror her own fears, and in their conversations laced with laughter and music, both discover a symphony of resilience that neither knew they possessed. The concierge's dream of snow finds fulfillment when she orchestrates a hidden snow machine beneath the hotel's courtyard, turning a courtyard of marble into a glistening winter wonderland. And the chef, inspired by her daring palate, conjures a dessert so sublime that it crystallizes joy into a single bite, proof that creativity is born not from fear of failure but from freedom to imagine. Each revelation intertwines with the next, building a tapestry rich with color and texture, where personal transformation blooms in the most unexpected corners of the heart. Amid these joyful revelations, a shadow of doubt returns to test her resolve. She stumbles upon a sight that catches her breath. Souvenirs from her hometown, tucked behind a velvet drape in the hotel's gift shop, priced at figures so steep they seem to mock her newfound surrender to extravagance. In that banal cabinet of trinkets, she glimpses the gap between her old life and her current odyssey. Amid these joyful revelations, a shadow of doubt returns to test her resolve. She stumbles upon a sight that catches her breath. Souvenirs from her hometown, tucked behind a velvet drape in the hotel's gift shop, priced at figures so steep they seem to mock her newfound surrender to extravagance. In that banal cabinet of trinkets, she glimpses the gap between her old life and her current odyssey, and for a moment she fears that this entire retreat has been nothing but a gilded illusion. The laughter at morning breakfast falters, and the champagne sparkle dims as she questions the authenticity of every dazzling delight she has embraced. It is here, in the hushed stillness of her own doubts, that her true test emerges. Will she cling to the transient sparkle of luxury, or will she forge a deeper treasure in the memories she carries forward? In this ebb and flow of hope and uncertainty, the film unfolds its most profound truth, that life's greatest luxury lies not in palace suites or grand banquets, but in the courage to remain open-hearted, no matter what fate decrees. As she stands beside a grand window, gazing out at the twinkling lights of a distant city, you feel the weight of her transformation settling like dawn across the horizon. Behind her, the marble corridor and the echo of orchestral strings hold silent witness to the woman she was and the woman she has become. Ahead of her, the world awaits, vast and unpredictable, but no longer frightening, because she has discovered that even in the face of mortality, the spirit can dance. When she finally returns home, armed with memories brighter than any jewel, she does so not in defeat but in triumph. The routines that once bound her now shimmer with possibility. A simple morning coffee tastes richer, the bench in the park a stage for stories newly imagined, every neighbor's face a canvas for shared laughter. In the gentle closure of her journey, you sense that this is not an ending, but the first verse of a new song, one written by a woman who learned that every moment, no matter how small, can become a treasure if met with an open heart. And as the credits begin their gentle roll, you carry with you the echo of her laughter, the shimmer of her tears, and the unwavering truth that sometimes it takes the promise of a final holiday to remind us how beautiful ordinary life can truly be. Morning light spilled through the blinds of a modest apartment, painting the walls in soft gold as she tied her apron with purposeful precision. The air hum of the city drifted in, taxi horns, distant laughter, the echo of streetcars carving tracks on wet pavement, and with it came the rhythm of her life, greeting each customer with a warm "good morning," stocking shelves with gleaming cookware, sharing a quick joke with her manager behind the cash register. She moved with a quiet confidence, as though she had practiced compassion long before she could walk, her laughter a soothing balm in the bustling aisles of the department store. Every pan polished to a mirror sheen beneath her careful fingers, every casserole dish nestled just so, bespeaking a woman who found comfort in order and grace in simple routines. Yet behind that bright smile lay whispers of something more, a heart tuned to the faint notes of hope and wonder that lurked beyond her front door. In her spare moments, she lingered over travel brochures, tracing the outlines of distant castles and sunlit piazzas, dreaming of cobbled streets that knew only the brush of her footprints. She kept a small collection of postcards pinned to her bulletin board, the azure roofs of Santorini, the rose-hued walls of a Moroccan Casbah, the soft green hills of the English countryside. Each image made her pulse quicken, yet reality always tugged her back. The modest paycheck, the monthly rent, the endless cycle of bills that folded her dreams into neat envelopes stamped "due on receipt." On weekends, she slipped into a cozy corner of the local bookshop, sinking into a leather armchair with a novel in hand and a cup of spiced tea. The owner, a kindly fellow with a shock of silver hair and round spectacles, always greeted her with a knowing smile. He spoke of authors who had roamed the world, of stories penned beneath foreign skies, and she listened as though he were reciting secret poetry. Sometimes she confided in him, just a line or two, about her yearning to step outside the frame of her own life. He would nod, refilling her cup, reminding her that the world was wide enough for all who dared to wander. But the fragile scaffolding of her hopes trembled one afternoon when she noticed a new entry on a medical chart, her name alongside a phrase that felt like an omen: brain hemorrhage. The doctor's office, usually a place of sterile comfort, transformed into a chamber of dread. When she walked through the door, she carried her usual calm. When she left, it dragged behind her like a heavy cloak. The diagnosis came in hushed tones, clinical and terrifying, a rare condition, asymptomatic until now, leaving little room for optimism. The calendar on the wall seemed to blur. The days she had taken for granted suddenly trembled underfoot, each one precious and precarious. In the quiet dawn that followed, she awoke with the world reframed. The knives in her kitchen, once instruments of daily meal preparation, now shimmered with an ironic edge. The spreadsheets she kept for her budget, so carefully balanced, snapped shut like jaws, reminding her that tomorrow was not guaranteed. For a moment, fear threatened to pull her under, its icy fingers tracing the curve of her spine. But as panic rose in her chest, a spark of defiance flared. She would not be defined by a number on a chart or a phrase on a sheet of paper. If life was slipping through her fingers, she would seize it with both hands, press her face to its window, and drink in its every unfolding scene. Within hours, her decision crystallized. She cleared out her savings, sold the extra flatware she'd collected for "someday," and reserved a spot on the next flight to Europe. No careful itinerary, no hesitant second-guessing, just a one-way ticket to a place she'd only glimpsed in photographs. At the airport, she stood beneath the scoreboard's glow, her bags at her feet, heart thundering like a wild drum. Goodbye letters lay scattered in her suitcase, to the cafe where the barista knew her order by heart, to the neighbors she'd never quite said thank you to herself, an apology laced with gratitude for the life she'd loved and the adventures that awaited. When she stepped off the train amid the bustling station of a grand European city, the air felt charged with promise. Ancient stones and wrought iron lampposts rose like sentinels, their elegance tempered by centuries of foot traffic and weather. As she wheeled her suitcase across the cobblestones, passers-by glanced at her in polite curiosity. Another traveler, they must have thought, with wide eyes and an expectant smile. She clutched a hastily jotted address for a hotel she had chosen more on whim than reputation, trusting that fate would guide her beyond any glossy brochure. The lobby that greeted her belonged to a palace of dreams. Soaring ceilings frescoed with angelic figures, walls adorned with opulent tapestries that whispered of another era, and chandeliers dripping crystals like frozen tears of celebration. A hush fell over her as she crossed the threshold, her senses awash in the hush of polished marble floors and the quiet murmur of impeccably attired staff. The concierge bent low in a bow, addressing her with a melodic accent that rolled from his tongue like fine wine. He handed her a gilded key and, with a flourish, revealed the corridor that would become her sanctuary for the days to come. Her suite awaited like a secret chamber behind an unassuming door. Inside, silk-draped windows framed vistas of manicured gardens, and a gilded bedspread shimmered beneath soft lamplight. A crystal decanter of water sat perched on a marble table, next to a card welcoming her to a world of endless indulgence. She closed the door behind her and allowed herself to exhale for the first time since the news had shattered her world. Here, in a room that felt more like a dreamscape than real estate, she resolved to inhabit every moment fully, to let the music of distant strings seep into her bones, to taste the richness of each bite as if it were her last, and to dance until her limbs forgot the ache of mortality. That very evening, she found herself drifting toward the grand dining hall, where tables draped in white linen stood ready beneath glittering candelabras. The soft clink of china and the low murmur of conversation wove around her, beckoning her to join the feast of possibility. Seated at her own place, she perused a menu that read like a traveler's diary: aromas of truffle and saffron, sculpted towers of sugar and cream, wines that carried the sun's perfume from distant vineyards. Each dish arrived as a delicate work of art, and with every taste, she felt herself slipping further from the woman who once balanced budgets and took comfort in predictability. Here, flavors were a melody, textures a dance. Late into the night, she wandered the corridors with her glass of champagne, listening to the soft patter of her heels against the marble floor. Shadows danced on the walls in time with her thoughts, shadows of doubt, shadows of exhilaration, but she pressed on, her reflection in the polished surfaces a testament to her metamorphosis. In the hush before dawn, she found a balcony overlooking the gardens, where dew clung to rose petals and the air smelled of promise. There, in the fragile hush between dark and dawn, she whispered a vow to herself, to honor each heartbeat, to embrace every twist of fate, and to live so fully that regret would find no purchase upon her soul. Over the next days, she became an explorer of her own passion. She strolled through quiet courtyards where fountains murmured secrets, sampling pastries from a pastry chef who chased sunshine through every crumb. She joined strangers for morning promenades along stone arcades, discovering that laughter could echo even in the silent halls built for solemnity. With each conversation, she felt her world expand. The concierge confided dreams of distant theaters, the bartender shared tales of stolen romance on moonlit bridges, and the pianist in the lobby played melodies that seemed to understand her unspoken longings. Amid the tapestry of new experiences, she found herself reflecting on the life she had paused back home, the rotation of seasons, the comforting predictability of everyday tasks, the gentle rhythm of a world lived one heartbeat at a time. Yet now, framed against the grandeur of cathedrals and the hush of cloisters, those routines felt infused with new meaning. She realized that home need not be a place but a state of presence. The bench in the park where late afternoon sunlight warmed her face, the sidewalk beneath her feet when she came upon a street musician's song, the weight of a book in her hands as she discovered new worlds. And so, as weeks slipped by in a kaleidoscope of taste and touch, of whispered confidences and silent awakenings, she stood at the intersection of who she had been and who she was becoming. Each sunrise brought fresh revelations. The way light danced on cathedral spires, the laughter of children chasing pigeons in sunlit squares, the hush that settled over the earth at twilight. She found courage in unfamiliar streets, grace in unexpected kindnesses, and, above all, a fierce joy in the awareness that every moment, no matter how brief, could become an everlasting memory. Just as she began to believe she had unlocked the secret to living fully, fate stirred the winds once more, reminding her that even paradise holds its own price. But in that moment, beneath arching skies and the soft glow of lanterns, she met each twist with the fierce defiance that had carried her across oceans and into opulent hotel lobbies. With her heart open and her spirit ignited, she understood that the first leg of her journey had done more than fill her days with splendor. It had taught her that life's truest luxury lies not in grand hotels or layered sauces, but in daring to follow the call of the heart, even when the path ahead remains shrouded in mystery. The dawn that breaks over her European sanctuary carries a hush of anticipation, as though the very air braces itself for the next turn in her unfolding tale. In the soft lavender light, she steps onto the marble balcony once more, a letter pressed in her hand like a weight she can no longer ignore. The seal bears the crest of her hometown's mayor, and as she breaks it, her pulse quickens. Within, a plea. Her dear aunt, the kindly matriarch of the neighborhood where she grew up, has fallen gravely ill. The words tremble on the page, a reminder that while she has chased dreams beneath foreign skies, the world she left behind still holds her heart in its steady grasp. She pauses at the edge of the garden, where dew-kissed roses nod beneath the rising sun, and for a moment the luxury that has cocooned her feels both wondrous and distant. She thinks of the laughter that filled the gilded dining hall just hours ago, of the chef's latest masterpiece and the concierge's dream of snow realized in crystalline flakes beneath candlelight. Those memories have become a tapestry rich with color, but now their threads tug her back toward the place that shaped her gentle kindness and unwavering compassion. Gathering her courage, she packs her bags once more, trading ornate chandeliers for the familiar warmth of home, each step carrying the echo of every person she met, and every lesson she learned along the way. Her return is met with a gray sky and the soft rustle of autumn leaves, a contrast to the sunlit gardens she has left behind, yet in her chest blooms a fierce clarity. By the time she crosses the threshold of her aunt's modest house, her resolve has coalesced. She will bring the same spirit of adventure and hope to these weary walls. Inside, her aunt lies pale in bed, a quilt pulled high against the chill, and as she takes her hand, her return is met with a gray sky and the soft rustle of autumn leaves, a contrast to the sunlit gardens she has left behind, yet in her chest blooms a fierce clarity. By the time she crosses the threshold of her aunt's modest house, her resolve has coalesced. She will bring the same spirit of adventure and hope to these weary walls. Inside, her aunt lies pale in bed, a quilt pulled high against the chill, and as she takes her hand, the room brightens with shared memories. A lullaby hummed at bedtime, childhood scrapbooks strewn with inked dreams, the clasp of two hearts bound by love. That evening, around a table set with simple fare, she tells her aunt of grand hotels and moonlit orchestras, her words weaving warmth into the lamplight. In return, her aunt offers the wisdom of years lived fully. That home, too, can become a place of magic when it is tended with love. In the days that follow, she transforms the neighborhood with small gestures born of her journey. She assembles a supper of ingredients foraged from her travels, spiced olive tapenade recalled from sun-drenched piazzas, a confection of citrus she discovered in a seaside market, sending platters of bold flavors to neighbors whose latter years have grown too steady, too quiet. She arranges a picnic beneath the old oak in the park where she once chased fireflies as a child, stringing fairy lights in its branches to shimmer as dusk falls. The children gather in delight, their laughter rippling like wind chimes, and for an afternoon, the world feels boundless once again. In these acts, she revives not only the embers of her own heart but also those of every life around her, her courage to live lavishly in the face of mortality becoming a lantern for others. Yet under this rekindled warmth, a storm gathers. One evening, as she rests by her aunt's bedside, the doctor arrives with news that hushes the room. The diagnosis that sent her away has not been fully cured. The hemorrhage remains, dormant but present, its threat an unwelcome guest at her newfound feast. In the thin starlight that filters through the window, she steels herself against the tide of fear. Grief tugs at her lungs, but she remembers the lessons learned beneath crystal chandeliers and across cobblestone streets, to meet life's fragility not with trembling resignation, but with bold-hearted defiance. She pledges to savor each moment she has left, to weave meaning and beauty into the fabric of her days whether there are many or few. In the wake of this revelation, she proposes one final celebration, a grand gathering beneath the oak tree, invitations extended to friends old and new. The townspeople, touched by her warmth and buoyed by her optimism, rally to her vision. They drape the branches with lanterns and string rows of pennants that flutter in the autumn breeze. A makeshift stage emerges, and soon the neighborhood choir, once ragged and uncertain, lifts its voices in song, a tapestry of notes that fills the evening air. Children dance in the clearing, their feet stirring fallen leaves into swirling mosaics of gold and crimson. Neighbors clasp hands, swaying as though caught in a joyous tide, and in the midst of them stands our heroine, her chest expanding with gratitude so vast it feels beyond breath itself. And yet, it is here, at the height of jubilation, that the greatest twist unfurls. As cheers ring out and lanterns sway like constellations above, her aunt rises from her seat, leaning on a cane forged from a willow branch they discovered together one spring. She steps to the center of the gathering, her voice trembling with emotion as she addresses the crowd. In her hand is a weathered letter, one from decades past, written by the woman's own mother, who had vanished on a journey of her own, believed lost at sea. The letter reveals that the mother's illness had been misdiagnosed, that she had survived against all odds and settled in a far-off land, building a life she never spoke of. The aunt's revelation hangs in the autumn air like a breath held too long. Gasps ripple through the crowd as they realize that the courage to seek life's unknowns is woven into her very blood, a legacy passed from mother to daughter. Tears fill her eyes as she accepts the letter, her mind alight with the sudden possibility that perhaps she, too, might find her mother and unearth the full tapestry of her heritage. The hemorrhage that shadows her days now feels less like a curse and more like a compass, pointing toward the horizons she has yet to chart. In that electric moment, she understands that every detour, every brush with mortality, has led her here, to a village transformed by love, to an inheritance of daring that transcends geography and time. The final act unfolds like a dream stitched into reality. Under the same oak tree that has sheltered so many memories, she and her aunt retrace the journey the mother had taken, poring over old maps and travel journals tucked into dusty drawers. Neighbors offer stories passed down through hushed dinner conversations, snippets of a woman who spoke of lantern-lit bridges in far-off cities, who collected seashells along haunted coastlines. With the community behind her, she books passage on a ship that echoes the one her mother once boarded, each step on the gangplank a heartbeat aligned with centuries of wonder-seekers before her. As the vessel sets sail, the same wind that carries her across the waves whispers of home and adventure intertwined. She stands on deck at dawn, the salty spray cooling her cheeks, and unbuttons the coat she once wore in trembling anticipation of a diagnosis. Beneath it, she wears the same dress she donned for her first evening in the Grand Hotel, the one that caught the light like spun glass. That dress, now faded at the hem from all she has walked, feels like armor woven from memories. With each ripple of the sea, she feels fear and joy commingling within her chest, a bittersweet alchemy that affirms she is alive in every torrent of emotion. The journey's climax arrives on a mist-shrouded shore, a land as foreign as the one that claimed her mother's heart. As the anchor drops, she clutches the letter like a talisman, its final line speaking of love unbound by map or compass. She treads onto the quay, her footprints melding with footprints left by travelers long ago. The townsfolk who have traveled this route tell her of a small coastal village where lanterns flicker in windows at dusk, a place where her mother's name still echoes in the laughter of local children. With her aunt at her side, frail but determined, she follows the narrow alleys lined with weathered stone cottages, each door a threshold between past and possibility. In the center of the village stands an inn, its sign creaking in the harbor breeze. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and baking bread. There, behind a counter scarred by time, stands an elderly woman with eyes that mirror her own. The moment stretches, vast as an ocean horizon, until at last the woman's lips curve into recognition and tears glisten in her gaze. She rises, her cane forgotten, and crosses the space between them in 3 quick steps, enveloping our heroine in an embrace that bridges decades of silence and longing. Words fall away as they cling to one another, their tears mingling in a shared testament to resilience and love. The villagers gather, offering tea sweetened with honey and plates of fish freshly grilled, celebrating a reunion that feels ordained by the sea itself. In the hush of that inn, stories spill forth, of the mother's choice to protect her family by forging a new life, of the sacrifice and sorrow woven into each letter she mailed and waited in vain for a reply. The threads of history, once frayed, now knot together in a tapestry stronger than any told beneath crystal chandeliers. As dusk settles, our heroine stands at the inn's small balcony, sea breeze tangling her hair, and gazes back at the ship's lanterns bobbing in the harbor. She closes her eyes, feeling the cool brush of fate against her skin. With her mother and aunt beside her, and the memories of every friend she made along the way, she realizes that life's true voyage is not measured in miles but in the depths of connection we forge. The hemorrhage remains, a silent observer, yet now it feels less like an end and more like an invitation to live every breath as a gift. The final scene unfolds on the quay as dawn paints the sky in rose and gold. She pauses at the ship's rail, turning to her family and the villagers who have welcomed her into their fold. She presses the letter to her heart, the words alive with the promise of love that transcends charted seas. Then, with a quiet smile that carries the weight of every step she has taken, she whispers, "Let's see where the next tide carries us." And as the ship pulls away, leaving footprints in the water that shimmer beneath the new day's light, she dissolves the distance between heartbeats and horizons, living proof that even in the face of fate's deepest currents, a soul can soar. From the moment she steps into that bustling department store, her presence feels like sunlight refracting through a crystal, warm, radiant, and utterly alive. Every customer greeting, every delicate touch as she arranges cookware, reveals more than just courtesy. It hints at a woman whose kindness is stitched into the very fabric of her soul. She isn't merely friendly. She is attuned to the unspoken aches and small joys of those around her, as though she carries an inner compass that always points toward compassion. In her eyes flickers a gentle curiosity, an eagerness to discover the story behind each face that passes her by. And yet, beneath that generous spirit lies a reservoir of quiet strength. She has learned, through routines and responsibilities, to anchor her hope even when the world beyond her window seems too vast to navigate. When the doctor's solemn words arrive like an unexpected winter storm, her reaction is neither flat denial nor hysterical panic, but a measured stillness that crackles with hidden tenacity. Her hands cradle the medical chart with a surprising calm, as though she knows that in this moment fear must be tempered by resolve. Even as the news settles into her bones, she chooses defiance over despair. Rather than collapsing beneath the weight of a diagnosis, she gathers her belongings and her courage in one seamless motion. It is this blend of vulnerability and resilience that defines her. She feels every pang of uncertainty, yet refuses to let it write the final lines of her story. In the Grand Hotel's lobby, she transforms from a woman of modest means into a reluctant queen of indulgence, her wonder mirrored in the mirrored halls and glittering chandeliers that surround her. Each interaction with the staff reveals her capacity to see beyond rank and uniform. She speaks to the concierge not as a guest but as a confidant, drawing out dreams she had long kept hidden. To the chef, she offers genuine praise for a soufflé's gentle rise, igniting in him a spark he feared lost. She elevates each person she meets, reminding them, and the audience, that generosity is not measured by wealth but by the depth of attention one bestows upon another. Her laughter is never mere decoration. It blooms like a rare flower in winter, startling both herself and those who hear it. In scenes of unbridled joy, dancing beneath lantern-lit trees or sipping champagne by the fountain, her mirth is laced with a bittersweet awareness that each moment may be a farewell. Yet she does not cling to happiness as though it were fragile glass. Instead, she embraces it as the very reason to keep dancing, to keep tasting, to keep breathing deeply. This fearless embrace of joy, even when etched with the possibility of loss, becomes her signature pulse, a rhythmic reminder that life's richest moments are often those painted on uncertainty's canvas. By contrast, there is a quiet dignity in her moments of solitude. When she wanders through the gardens at dawn, the soft light brushing her face, she reflects on the life she will leave behind. In these solitary vignettes, she sheds the costume of optimism to confront the ache of goodbyes unsaid and memories unmade. Walking along dew-kissed paths, she imagines the familiar world at home waiting for her return, The humble apartment, the loyal friends, the comforting routine. These scenes reveal her longing for roots even as she stretches toward new heights, underscoring the delicate balance between belonging and exploration that defines her journey. The narrative's tension swells when she uncovers the truth of her affliction, testing every facet of her character. Faced again with the specter of mortality, she responds not with recrimination but with a luminous acceptance. This second blow could fracture her resolve, yet she stands tall, choosing to transform her fear into fuel for joy. It is in this crucible that her truest self emerges, a woman unafraid to stand in life's glare, to feel the scorching brilliance of each moment rather than retreat into shadows. In the film's final scenes, where farewell mingles with hope, the fullness of her character blossoms. She no longer seeks pity or escape but offers grace to herself and those around her. She binds together the lessons from every friendship forged, the chef's reclaimed passion, the concierge's restored dreams, her friend's steadfast laughter, the doctor's learned hope. She embraces home not as a static place but as an aggregate of love and experience, understanding that each memory is a seed from which new chapters can sprout. Her final act resonates as both culmination and commencement. With letter in hand, she steps onto the pier, bound once again for distant horizons. Yet this time she carries no frightened dreams, only the courage cultivated through both delight and adversity. In her steady stride, we glimpse the woman she has become, not merely the radiant clerk, not just the lavish guest, but a bearer of light who knows that life's miracle lies in the choice to shine, even when the night feels boundless. From her first kind greeting to her last hopeful glance at the horizon, her journey maps a constellation of generosity, resilience, and unyielding joy. Each relationship she nurtures, each fear she conquers, paints her portrait in strokes of compassion and courage. As the credits rise, we carry forward her lesson, that true richness blooms not from fortune alone, but from the daring to embrace every heartbeat, every breath, as a masterpiece in the gallery of existence. In the hush before dawn, the Grand Hotel lobby slumbers beneath swathes of velvet drapes and crystal chandeliers, each facet catching the faintest ribbon of light like a secret treasure. It was here, on that polished marble floor, that the first whispers of the film's peculiar magic began to stir. The crew arrived in the half-light, greeted not by the hum of generators but by something far stranger, a lone canary perched atop the grand piano, its golden feathers contrasting wildly with the opulent decor. No one knew how it had flown in. Some swore they heard a soft chirp in the wings of dawn, but the bird became an unofficial mascot, its song threading through the early morning rehearsals and infusing even the strictest scenes with an air of wonder behind the scenes. The script supervisor kept an unlikely diary of odd occurrences, pages bound in burgundy leather, its cover stamped with the image of a forgotten rose. On one entry, she recounted how the lead's vintage luggage went missing just before the European shoot, only to be discovered hours later in a sun-drenched corner of the hotel's hidden garden. The catch. The luggage had been locked shut, its key nowhere to be found until the bellboy, who swore he'd never seen it before, produced a tiny brass key from his pocket with a sheepish grin. The mystery spread through the cast like wildfire, inspiring midnight hunts with flashlights and whispered theories of time-traveling couriers. In the pristine kitchens below the lobby, where silver pots gleamed and copper pans waited like soldiers on parade, a more spectral presence took hold. The pastry chef, a man so exacting that he measured flour with calipers, reported the recurring disappearance of a single sugar rose that he had delicately piped for the heroine's finale dessert. Each night, after the shutters were drawn, the rose would vanish, only to reappear the next morning perched atop his whisk, its petals untouched by fingers. He tried hiding it in a locked cupboard, but by sunrise it lay on the countertop once more. Eventually, he resigned himself to the notion that some spirits prefer the sweetness of pastry over trickery. Far above the marble floors, in the rafters where rigging cables snaked like silent serpents, the lighting crew encountered a phenomenon that defied explanation. During one evening's shoot, every spotlight aimed at the grand staircase flickered out in perfect unison, plunging the entire set into darkness, yet the backup generators roared on. Moments later, as if guided by unseen hands, the beams reignited one by one, tracing the ornate balustrade in a ghostly silhouette. The director, ever the romantic skeptic, insisted it must be a faulty dimmer board. Still, the electricians found no fault, and the sequence made it into the final cut, lending that pivotal descent and ethereal quality no technician could replicate on demand. On the terraces overlooking the gardens, where fountains murmured secrets in twilight, an altogether different kind of oddity took root. The call time for outdoor scenes was set at precisely 5:17 a.m., because every day earlier than that, the mist would refuse to lift. Every minute later, the sun would bake the dew into a glare that washed out the lenses. The cinematographer, a man who charted cloud cover like an astronomer reads constellations, discovered this through trial and error. But the real marvel was how the fog seemed to drift in step with the actress's emotional crescendos, thickening during moments of doubt and dissolving in her triumphant smiles. Whether by design or by design's serendipitous failure, the result was a visual tapestry that mirrored her journey more faithfully than any storyboard could. In the corridors behind the grand ballroom, where extras lined up for their cues, an accidental superstition took hold. An extra playing a waiter tripped on a stray cable and spilled a tray of champagne flutes, shattering crystal in a symphony of tinkling shards. Rather than prompt scolding, the crew erupted in laughter and together scooped up the pieces, scattering them in a makeshift mosaic at the foot of the central chandelier. From that day forward, any extra who felt the jitters before a take would leave a single broken shard on the floor, believing it brought them luck and sealed their place in a legacy of resilience. By the final day of shooting, tiny fragments glittered in every corner like fallen stars. In one of the lesser-known studios where green screens met painted flats, a peculiar piece of prop jewelry caused consternation. The necklace meant to symbolize the heroine's leap of faith was forged from Swarovski crystals set in silver, a delicate thing meant to catch the candlelight. Yet every take in which it featured seemed to trap a glimmer of imperfection, a stray hair lurking in the metalwork, a smudge only visible on the camera feed. The prop master remade it 3 times, each iteration more flawless than the last, yet the anomaly persisted. At last, they decided to lean into it. That tiny flaw became a metaphor for the character's own imperfections, and the final necklace, with its imperceptible blemish, found its way into both the script and the story. Meanwhile, the wardrobe department wrestled with a different enigma. The heroine's signature coat, a deep emerald-tailored frock, required dozens of yards of custom-embroidered fabric. But each evening, after the day's shoot wrapped, one sleeve would emerge slightly shorter than the other, as though the coat itself had shuffled its proportions in the night. The seamstresses measured, pinned, and re-hemmed until their pins bent from use. One suggested hiring a local tailor from the nearby village. Another joked about a mischievous ghost of a seamstress lost in the rafters. Finally, they began to hang 2 coats side by side, allowing the morning sunlight to guide which one felt right, an approach so whimsical it made them laugh even as they sewed the hems by the light of a single bulb. The film's musical scores were recorded in a venerable concert hall whose echoes were famed throughout the region. As the strings played the themes of hope and loss, sound engineers noticed something odd. A single microphone, positioned beneath an ornate plaster relief, veered slightly off frequency whenever the lead violinist struck a particular note. When they moved the mic, the discord vanished, but returned the next day in the exact same spot. The crew tested for ghoulish interference, radio signal bleed, even urban legend, yet found no rational cause. Eventually they accepted it as the hall's personality, adjusting the mix so that the slight wavering became a spectral accent, an invisible tremor beneath the lush orchestration. Across town, in the attic of a century-old inn used for key dialogue pickups, the production designer discovered a stash of yellowed telegrams dating back to the 1920s. They told tales of a young heiress who vanished en route to a seaside resort, her messages abruptly stopping in mid-sentence. Finding the inn's layout mirrored that of the film's fictional hotel, the crew spun theories that this lost heiress had somehow imprinted her longing onto the very walls. To honor her, they placed a single printed telegram under the floorboards near the actress's dressing room, believing it would bring her an extra measure of depth in her final performance. She later admitted feeling inexplicably reflective whenever she changed costumes there. As the production moved into its climactic days, the director introduced an unconventional ritual. Every morning before rolling cameras, he would pour a cup of coffee and recite 3 lines from his favorite poet, believing it set the tone for authenticity. On the first day of this routine, the boom operator, who had arrived late, mistakenly played the lines in reverse order, and the take that followed captured an unrepeatable cadence in the lead speech, a raw vulnerability that moved the director to tears. From then on, the ritual included a playful challenge. The poet's verses would be shuffled, forcing everyone to listen anew. Those scrambled mornings yielded some of the film's most heartfelt moments, lending the final scenes a curious freshness that defied rehearsal. In one seldom discussed twist, the animal wrangler's bulldog, cast as the stubborn companion in a pivotal sequence, began to refuse treats unless offered exactly 6 small cubes of cheese. No more, no less. On set, extras and crew watched in amusement as the dog meticulously counted each morsel before granting his signature growl. The wrangler, convinced this canine counted in binary, trained him using a metronome's beat, resulting in a scene where the dog's timing synced perfectly with the heroine's hesitation, an odd, Beethoven-like precision that tickled the audience when they noticed it. After the shoot wrapped, the dog retired to a local shelter, where volunteers found him mysteriously adept at reciting Shakespearean lines when prompted with the metronome. As final pickups commenced in a shadowy courtyard behind the main hotel, the weather took a capricious turn. One moment the sky was a perfect cerulean, the next a sudden hailstorm battered the set with pellets as large as peas. Rather than cancel, the director seized the raw drama, ordering the actress to sprint across the courtyard as though fate itself had turned against her. That spontaneous decision became the film's signature chase, the hissing hail and scuttling extras lending it a feral energy no writer could script. The hail stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving glistening cobblestones and a sense that nature itself had auditioned as a stunt double. In the editing suite, the assistant editor stumbled on another serendipity. While syncing dailies, she noticed a single frame in which the heroine's reflection appeared twice in a polished brass railing, once ahead of her, once behind. To test whether it was a stray dub or splice, she isolated the frame and found both reflections played back in slow motion, as though 2 versions of the scene had intercut at lightning speed. The effect was uncanny. It whispered of parallel lives and unseen choices. The director, enchanted, wove that frame into a dream sequence, a momentary dreamscape that hints at paths unlived. On the final day of the shoot, as the sun dipped low and crews gathered for one last group photo, the hotel's grand clock chimed 13 times, a jarring toll that startled extras and struck silence across the courtyard. No one could explain it. The clock was digitally controlled, the footage showed no evidence of tampering, and the clock hands still bore only 12 numerals. Yet no one denied what they heard. That 13th chime became a legend among the cast, a secret punctuation to the production's saga. They say that if you listen closely on a silent night, somewhere in that old hotel you can still hear it, marking time beyond time. When the film premiered, audiences spoke of an indefinable atmosphere, a certain thrill at moments when breath caught in throats or hearts fluttered unexpectedly. Critics lauded the performances, the score, the sumptuous design, but few guessed at the tapestry of oddities woven beneath the polished surface. When the film premiered, audiences spoke of an indefinable atmosphere, a certain thrill at moments when breath caught in throats or hearts fluttered unexpectedly. Critics lauded the performances, the score, the sumptuous design, but few guessed at the tapestry of oddities woven beneath the polished surface. The film's greatest strangeness, perhaps, lies not in any one event but in the way every unexpected occurrence, lost luggage, spectral rose, phantom hail, conspired to mirror the heroine's own uncanny journey from the mundane to the miraculous. In each anomaly, the crew glimpsed a reflection of the story they told, that life's most enchanting moments are those we cannot predict, and that behind every polished scene, there beats a wild, beautiful heart. And so, long after the credits fade, the film lives on in whispers of ghosts in chandeliers, dogs counting cheese cubes, and that ever-echoing 13th chime, proof that sometimes the strangest facts make the richest magic. A hush descends over the screen as the first scene fades into view, the heroine's steady stride through the department store, her laughter lifting the hum of commerce into something almost sacred. It is in this opening tableau that the film seeds its most potent tension, between the comforting predictability of routine and the trembling promise of change. Critics have noted how this sequence, though unassuming, lays the groundwork for the entire narrative, subtly reminding us that the ordinary often conceals the extraordinary. The soft focus on polished cookware and the warm, ambient lighting coax the viewer into a sense of security, only to have that security shattered by a single, clinical pronouncement. In one breath we are lulled by the gentle rituals of daily life. In the next, we are propelled into the unknown by the harsh clarity of a life-altering diagnosis. That moment of revelation, when the doctor's words hang suspended in the sterile air, resonates far beyond the plot. It challenges us to confront our own mortality, to question the value we place on time and routine. Many critics have praised the film for refusing to sugarcoat this moment with melodrama. Instead, it opts for a quiet close-up on her face, capturing the flicker of fear, the seed of defiance, and the dawning resolve all at once. Here, the film's critical strength lies in understatement. The absence of sweeping music or frantic editing lends the scene an authenticity that cuts deeper into the audience's heart. It is a reminder that sometimes the most profound moments in cinema are those that allow silence to speak. In the aftermath of that diagnosis, the heroine's decision to abandon her safe existence and book a one-way ticket to Europe becomes a defiant act of agency. It transforms her from passive recipient of fate into active architect of her remaining days. The film's critical reception often highlights this pivot as a masterstroke, lauding the narrative for empowering its central character rather than casting her as a victim. The decision ripples through every subsequent event, inviting viewers to consider how they, too, might seize agency in the face of adversity. This choice is underscored by a flourish of cinematography. The camera lingers on her suitcase's wheels rolling across the departure board's harsh neon, then follows her silhouette disappearing into the terminal crowd. It is a cinematic promise that the rest of the film will honor, an unspoken vow that her leap of faith will be worth witnessing. As she arrives at the opulent hotel, the film indulges in visual richness that invites both lavish pleasure and critical reflection. The grandeur of marble columns, glittering chandeliers, and mirrored walls serves not only as eye candy but as commentary on the intoxicating allure of luxury. Critics have observed that these sequences critique, even as they celebrate, the seductive power of wealth. The film seems to ask, can extravagance alone heal a wounded soul? In the ballroom scenes, the sumptuous decor and elegant guests swirl around her, yet her initial hesitation reminds us that opulence can feel hollow without genuine connection. It is only when she extends kindness to the staff, serving them as eagerly as they have served her, that the film signals its true thesis, that empathy, not extravagance, yields transformation. The breakfast montage that follows crystallizes this insight. As platters of caviar and towers of pastries arrive with balletic timing, the camera cuts to her delight, yes, but also to the solitary expressions of the staff as they watch her revel in simple joys. Critics point out how the film uses these mirrored gazes to underscore its egalitarian critique. True wealth is shared wealth, a lesson she learns in each bite. In one deft move, the narrative pivots from a fantasy of unbridled consumption to a parable of communal generosity, reminding audiences that the currency of compassion far outweighs any coin. The heart of the film's critical acclaim lies in how it portrays the friendships she forges. The concierge, initially fastidious and reserved, softens into a figure of warmth under her influence. Their dialogue, marked by gentle teasing and moments of quiet revelation, has been praised for its authenticity. In particular, the scene where she persuades him to pursue his long-abandoned dream of seeing snowfall illuminates the film's larger point, that we often need a catalyst, a loving nudge, to rekindle our own passions. Critics have celebrated this moment as the emotional fulcrum of the story, one that resonates because it arises naturally from the character's shared humanity rather than from contrived plot mechanics. Meanwhile, her bond with the pastry chef becomes a microcosm of creative rebirth. Initially constrained by his own perfectionism, he views her spirited palate as an intrusion into his disciplined world. Yet as he observes her joy at each new taste, he rediscovers the playful curiosity that inspired him to become a chef in the first place. Their final collaboration on a dessert, layered like her journey, sweet yet tinged with bitters, has been singled out by reviewers as a triumph of storytelling through food. It encapsulates the film's thesis that creativity, like life, flourishes most when we embrace uncertainty and delight in unexpected combinations. Amid these uplifting encounters, the film does not shy away from darker currents. The return letter from home, a plea to tend to her ailing aunt, stirs a crisis of loyalty and identity. Critics have noted how this plot twist deepens the narrative's complexity, forcing her to negotiate the tension between self-discovery and familial duty. The film's handling of this moment avoids simplistic resolutions. Rather than choosing one path over the other, she integrates both in a way that honors her roots while affirming her newfound sense of self. The climax of this narrative thread, a tender scene around her aunt's kitchen table, lingers in the memory as a testament to the film's capacity for emotional nuance. In its final act, the film unfurls its most ambitious gambit, sending the heroine on a voyage to discover the fate of her long-lost mother. This metaphoric journey across turbulent seas becomes a vivid allegory for the inner voyage she has undertaken from fear to acceptance, from routine to audacity. The cinematography here swells with crests of crashing waves and shafts of dawn breaking through mist, visual language that evokes both peril and promise. As the final credits roll and the last strains of music fade, the screen dims but the film's light lingers in the heart. Critics and audiences alike carry forward its invitation, to live fully, to love deeply, to embrace the unexpected twists that shape our stories. In that lingering glow, we find the essence of its impact, a cinematic meditation on mortality and joy, on the power of agency and empathy, on the alchemy that transforms routine into revelation. And in that alchemy, the film's true magic endures, eternally poised between the ordinary and the sublime. Before the sun had fully climbed above the rooftops, the streets of Prague lay quiet beneath a pale hush, waiting for the day's business to begin. It was on one of those still mornings that the crew for Last Holiday first set foot in the old quarter, suitcases rolling over cobblestones as though sentinels heralding a cinematic invasion. They had flown in from half a dozen continents, burdened with cameras, cables, and dreams of transforming these ancient lanes into the backdrop for Queen Latifah's grand escape. Unloading in the deserted plaza felt almost sacramental, a whispered promise that by tonight the same stones would echo with laughter, hushed conversations, and the soft click of heels on marble. The filmmakers had chosen Prague for its timeless elegance and architectural variety. The Baroque facades, the Renaissance courtyards, the hidden gardens behind wrought iron gates. Production designer Ellen Christensen arrived the week before principal photography, sketchpad in hand, to wander from alley to square in search of the perfect hotel. She found it tucked behind a swivel of twisted vines, a half-restored palace whose marble floors still bore the footprints of emperors. Inside, chandeliers dangled like crystal tears, and ornate mirrors caught the reflection of stained glass windows. It was here that host Georgia Bird would dine on caviar, sip champagne beneath gilded ceilings, and rediscover the luxury she had long denied herself. Constructing the grand ballroom set proved a feat of both artistry and engineering. The space was a soundstage in Barrandov Studios, its walls bare concrete when the carpenters arrived. Over the next 2 weeks, they erected towering columns of plaster infused with marble dust for authenticity. Carpenters hand-carved each Corinthian capital, their mallets ringing out in the cavernous hall like church bells. Painters followed, layering pigments in subtle veils to emulate centuries of patina. By day's end, the set glowed with a warm golden hue, and extras in tuxedos and ball gowns moved among pillars that looked as though they had been standing since the 1700s. Queen Latifah joined the production with a blend of star power and down-to-earth warmth that immediately endeared her to the crew. On her first morning, she arrived at 5:30 a.m. in a cozy parka and running shoes, determined to learn the ins and outs of the hotel's corridors before shooting began. She greeted the gaffers by name, asked the prop masters about the history of each piece, and even invited the lighting technicians to test the softness of their diffusers with her own camera phone. By the end of the day, one of the grips confessed he half expected her to whip out a director's chair and invite him for an impromptu rehearsal of his own lines. One of the film's most memorable sequences, the scene where Georgia strides into the hotel's opulent lobby for the first time, required more than a single take. Director Wang wanted the camera to track alongside her as she moved from the heavy wooden doors into the vast, echoing space, capturing every flicker of her astonished expression. Cinematographer Chris Knorr used a Steadicam rig mounted on a custom dolly track that wound through the set's hidden passages, crossing scaffolding and ducking under catwalks before bursting into the lobby. On the day of the take, an errant breeze from an unseen vent scattered a bank of silk curtains just as Latifah entered, causing them to whirl like living ghosts. "Rather than call, 'Cut,'" Wang exclaimed, "keep rolling." The resulting footage features the curtains dancing around her like a ballet of wind spirits, an unexpected flourish that made the final cut. Costume designer Christine Bach faced her own share of challenges when assembling George's wardrobe. The script called for 100 or more distinct looks: cocktail dresses, evening gowns, tailored suits, each reflecting George's journey from frugal clerk to opulent guest. But sourcing couture on a tight schedule and budget proved tricky. Bach and her team combed through vintage shops in Prague's Zizkov district, emerging with racks of sequined flapper dresses and velvet blazers that seemed to whisper stories of another era. They sent some pieces to Milan for embellishment and had others recut overnight in a makeshift atelier behind the studio. Latifah's signature emerald gown, the one she wears during the celebratory gala, was actually assembled from 3 separate vintage dresses, sewn together in a marathon sewing session that ended at dawn. The heart of George's transformation lies in one small accessory: a delicate brooch she pins to her lapel in a moment of quiet reckoning. That brooch was passed down by hairstylist Marcus Francis himself, who found it in his grandmother's jewelry box. He affixed it to Latifah's coat before the scene, explaining that it was a talisman of courage in his family. She clicked it into place with a thoughtful smile, and Wang captured the moment, lingering on her hands for an extra second, a silent acknowledgement of the objects we carry as anchors in our lives. The hotel's staff played tools in the film's narrative, and many were locals hired for their authentic presence. They learned to navigate the set's intricate pathways, cueing their lines with military precision as Georgia interacted with them: at the concierge desk, in the kitchen, at the foot of the grand staircase. One of them, an actor named Tomas Novak, became known for his unintentional pranks. He would sneak rubber mice into the chef's apron pocket, causing momentary panic in the kitchen before the crew dissolved into laughter. His antics helped maintain a playful atmosphere on long days, reminding everyone that joy could be found even behind the sternest facades. Speaking of the kitchen, the film's culinary sequences offered their own slice of drama. Real chefs were brought on board to replicate the opulent dishes Georgia tastes, but the camera required food that could withstand the intense heat of the lights and hours of shooting. Pastry chef Mirek Horak, a Czech native renowned for sugar sculpting, tackled the feat of crafting a sugar rose that would hold its form under studio lamps. He worked late into the night, layering sugar petals one by one and reinforcing the stem with a hidden wire. On the day of shooting, the sugar rose miraculously survived a sudden spike in temperature, only to be inadvertently knocked to the floor by a rushing grip. Mirek, refusing to panic, scooped up the petals, reassembled the bloom in seconds, and handed it back with nary a flaw. His calm under pressure earned him a round of applause, and an extra slice of the celebratory cake. Music played a central role in evoking the film's emotional arcs, and the score by John Debney was recorded with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra in the ornate Rudolfinum Concert Hall. The hall's acoustics are famous worldwide, but they also presented a challenge. Any stray cough or shuffle from the audience would echo through the microphones. Mirek, refusing to panic, scooped up the petals, reassembled the bloom in seconds, and handed it back with nary a flaw. His calm under pressure earned him a round of applause, and an extra slice of the celebratory cake. Music played a central role in evoking the film's emotional arcs, and the score by John Debney was recorded with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra in the ornate Rudolfinum Concert Hall. The hall's acoustics are famous worldwide, but they also presented a challenge. Any stray cough or shuffle from the audience would echo through the microphones. During one key session, Debney demanded absolute silence as the strings played the theme of George's awakening. Just as the final swell began, a patter of hoofbeats from a carriage outside thundered through the tall windows. The conductor, a veteran of these halls, raised a hand with a wry smile and whispered to the musicians, "We ride alongside her," before they played through with renewed vigor, and a hint of carriage rhythm woven into the crescendos. In the editing room, The film's pacing was carefully sculpted to mirror George's own transformation. Editor Christopher Greenbury sifted through hours of footage, looking for the moments when Latifah's expression shifted from cautious hope to full-fledged belief. He crafted montages that juxtaposed her reserved glances at the hotel's treasures with bursts of spontaneous dance in the kitchen and laughter, creating an emotional arc that feels both organic and ecstatic. One of his favorite discoveries was a sequence captured between takes, where Latifah kicked off her heels and spun among the morning crew, her laughter unguarded. Greenbury insisted on including a fleeting glimpse of that spin, even though it broke continuity, because it captured the film's irrepressible spirit. Weather, as it does in life, had its own plans. A rainstorm rolled in on the day set aside for the film's pivotal exterior shot, Georgia standing before the Grand Hotel with a sky that matched her storm of emotions. The crew could have waited it out, but director Wang decided to embrace the rain, instructing the actors to let the drops fall where they may. Queen Latifah, ever game, lifted her face to the sky, laughter spilling from her lips as raindrops kissed her cheeks. The camera rolled, catching the genuine surprise of the crew as they watched her soak it in. That unscripted moment of abandon, woven into the film's climax, became one of its most celebrated images, a testament to the magic that happens when art and nature collide. Throughout production, the crew maintained a ritual of sharing a communal meal every Friday night, rotating from hearty Czech stews to spicy gyros from a street vendor favored by the grips. It was during one such feast that screenwriter Michael Elliott recounted the tale of the script's earliest draft, which had Georgia fleeing to a ski resort rather than a European palace. The shift to the hotel setting, he explained between forkfuls of dumplings, was inspired by a chance visit to a grand resort in Bath, England. The resulting change opened up new narrative possibilities, allowing the team to explore themes of entitlement and authenticity within enclosed walls of luxury. That anecdote became a cherished part of the production lore, retold around late-night tables alike. The most poignant behind-the-scenes story came in the film's final week, when Queen Latifah received news that a childhood friend was seriously ill. She asked the cast and crew for a moment of silence before shooting her last scene, dedicating it to her friend's courage. The entire set paused, lights dimmed, cameras stopped rolling, and Queen Latifah stood alone by the grand staircase in her emerald gown, eyes bright with unshed tears. For a heartbeat, the opulent set felt like sacred ground. Then, as she whispered a few words of gratitude to the heavens, the crew erupted into applause and moved to support her however they could. That moment of shared vulnerability wove itself into the final edit, a silent tribute etched in the film's lingering glances. When the shoot wrapped just past midnight on a breezy October evening, the cast and crew gathered on the marble steps of the hotel and raised champagne flutes borrowed from the prop department. The photographer snapped a shot that captured the glow of triumph, exhaustion, and camaraderie in equal measure. Many would say it looked less like a Hollywood wrap party and more like a family reunion, a fitting testament to a production that thrived on collaboration, kindness, and the belief that every frame, every gesture, and every unexpected twist along the way contributed to the film's enduring warmth. In the months that followed, the stories of that Prague shoot spread through festival panels and DVD commentaries, each anecdote, of missing luggage locked by raccoons, phantom sugar roses reappearing at dawn, paparazzi-like canaries, adding to the film's legend. Audiences watching on screen might never know of the Steadicam's secret passage, or of the maestro's carriage rhythm score, or of the emerald gown's patchwork origins. Yet all those tales live on in every flicker of candlelight, every rush of orchestral swell, every unguarded smile that graces the screen. Behind the glamour, the precision, and the star-studded performances, it was the crew's quiet devotion to surprise and wonder that breathed life into Last Holiday, reminding us that sometimes the most extraordinary stories unfold not just in front of the camera, but in the hidden corridors of creation where laughter, courage, and serendipity converge. Morning light pours through the sheer curtains of her modest apartment, spilling across the humble kitchen table where travel brochures lie splayed like maps to another life. The walls, painted a soft eggshell white, hum with quiet promise, a blank canvas waiting for the color of adventure. This is the world she knows. Thrift store finds arranged with care, the chipped china teacups lined up like old friends, the gentle hum of the radiator as faithful as a heartbeat. Cinematographer Chris Nor captures these opening moments with a tender intimacy. Soft, diffused light filters through the window, creating pools of warmth that cradle her routines. The camera lingers on her fingertips as they trace the spines of guidebooks, emphasizing her longing for something beyond the familiar. In this simple setting, every shadow and highlight reinforces the film's first theme, that comfort can cradle the spirit, and also cage it. The final seaside reunion takes place under an iron-latticed gazebo perched on a cliff's edge, waves smashing against rocks far below. A setting sun bleeds vermilion into the sky, which the camera captures in an unbroken take, a ribbon of crimson clouds unfurling as mother and daughter draw close. The unhurried shot holds the tension between past and present, the setting's grandeur echoing their emotional expanse. Each gust of wind, each boom of water, resonates through their embrace. In this climatic scene, the setting becomes a character, a witness to reconciliation, a testament to the film's faith that place shapes our capacity for healing. Throughout, the film's use of light articulates its emotional texture. In moments of optimism, her first toast in the lobby, laughter splashing around a moonlit dinner, the light blooms bright and clear, flaring on crystal and silver. In her moments of doubt, the letter from home, the echoing corridors at dawn, the light collapses into cool blues, corridors of shadow stretching like questions into her future. The cinematography uses sharp chiaroscuro to carve her silhouette against wide vistas, emphasizing the tension between illumination and mystery. This interplay of light and shadow becomes a visual metaphor for choice, to step toward brightness or retreat into darkness. Camera movement punctuates her emotional arcs. Whoosh pans follow her breathless strides across marble floors. Slow push-ins capture the quiver of her resolve as she pins on the brooch passed down to her. Tracking shots accompany her in the train station, the steel tracks seeming to tug her forward to undiscovered realms. Dutch tilts undercut scenes of doubt, her figure skewed in the frame as uncertainty skitters at the edges of her vision. Overhead bird's-eye shots recast grand settings as chessboards, her movements hinting at strategic choices rather than mere chance. Tilt shifts isolate her in crowds, the world around her softening into gentle blurs that underscore her quiet determination. Production design extends beyond architecture into the small details that make each setting sing. The wallpaper in her apartment, printed with tiny blue roses, whispers of innocence and restraint. Her desk's trinkets, an old travel clock, postcards pinned in uneven rows, become talismans of hope. In the hotel, a gilded frame around a watercolor of distant Alps suggests the lure of horizons she has yet to explore. In the seaside village, chipped mugs bear the red stamp of a family-owned bakery, each imperfection signifying history and continuity. The film's acute attention to these textures immerses the viewer in worlds that feel both crafted and lived in, each prop anchoring the narrative's emotional stakes. Music and sound unify these settings into a coherent tapestry. In the apartment, the soft click of boiling water and a distant radio station hint at routines awaiting disruption. In the hotel, the echo of footsteps on marble, the hum of conversation, and the gentle trickle of fountains merge into a symphony of luxury. By the sea, the crash of surf and gull cries underscore her vulnerability and grunt the power of nature's timeless rhythms. The score, light strings in the department store, swelling orchestra in the hotel's heart, plaintive woodwinds by the shore, responds to setting with intuitive shifts, each theme tied to a landscape and a stage in her story. As the film draws to a close, her final steps back onto the train platform are imbued with quiet triumph. The camera frames her from behind, sunlight dancing on the rails ahead, melting the line between station and horizon into one unbroken promise. Gone are the sterile lights of the department store, the gilded reflection of luxury, the salt spray of the harbor. Instead, there stands a woman shaped by settings both grand and humble, each location etched into her soul and mirrored in her gaze. In that single shot, the film's setting and cinematography converge to affirm the alchemy at its core. That place, light, and movement together map the contours of transformation, turning every world into a mirror for the heart. Before the city stirred on that crisp Prague morning, the first trucks bearing cameras and crates rolled into the silent cobblestone courtyard. Unloading took on the air of a furtive operation, as grips carted steel dollies through narrow alleys while extras tiptoed around stacks of marble props still swathed in blankets. As dawn light began to gild the red rooftops, director Wang stepped from his van clutching a thermos of strong coffee, already scheming how to shoot Queen Latifah's grand entrance with maximum wonder. No one said much at first. The crew moved like shadows, intent on transforming a centuries-old palace into the luminous heart of Georgia Bird's improbable journey. It was during those first hours that the unofficial hierarchy of the set revealed itself. The gaffer, a stocky Czech with nimble fingers, earned instant admiration by rigging lanterns along an impossibly high balcony in less time than the storyboard artist predicted. Meanwhile, the key grip emerged as the kindly foil to the chef's intimidating presence in the kitchen set, sneaking extra pastries to the pastry assistants when the chef's back was turned, only to be scolded with a grin and a theatrical bow. Queen Latifah arrived soon after, her gait unhurried, greeting each department head by name and surprising the camera operators by volunteering to test a new wireless mic along the echoing corridors. Her laughter became the production's unofficial soundtrack, echoing off stone walls and coaxing even the sternest crew members into impromptu smiles. Among the earliest challenges was the grand ballroom shoot, scheduled for 2 full days but threatened by an unexpected crack in the soundstage's ceiling. During the first take, a faint drizzle pattered onto the marble floor, small at first, then persistent, despite a clear weather forecast. The carpenters scrambled to tape down tarps and redirect water into drainage channels, all while extras in tuxedos and ball gowns kept their composure under faux umbrellas. Latifah, ever the professional, quipped that the scene felt more authentic than any dry run could achieve, and the crew pressed on. By evening, once the roof was sealed with industrial tar and humidifiers, everyone agreed those first soggy takes lent the ballroom an accidental patina of age that no amount of art direction could have replicated. Costumes posed a different kind of puzzle. Christine Bach, the film's costume designer, had labored over dozens of exquisite gowns and tailored suits, but when the convoy from Milan arrived 2 days late, the team had to improvise. They combed through racks of local vintage shops, unearthing battered jackets and sequined cocktail dresses that, with a few swift stitches and a splash of gold leaf, became showstoppers on screen. One night, Bach and her assistants worked until dawn in the wardrobe trailer, fueled by black coffee and leftover donuts. By sunrise, they emerged clutching a breathless handful of glittering frocks, proof that constraints often breed creativity more fiercely than endless resources. By contrast, there is a quiet dignity in her moments of solitude. When she wanders through the gardens at dawn, the soft light brushing her face, she reflects on the life she will leave behind. In these solitary vignettes, she sheds the costume of optimism to confront the ache of goodbyes unsaid and memories unmade. Walking along dew-kissed paths, she imagines the familiar world at home waiting for her return, the humble apartment, the loyal friends, the comforting routine. These scenes reveal her longing for roots even as she stretches toward new heights, underscoring the delicate balance between belonging and exploration that defines her journey. Standing beside her at nearly every turn is the compassionate physician whose gentle counsel carries a dual weight. He delivers grim tidings with a tenderness that suggests he has faced similar losses in his own life. Their relationship evolves from clinical formality into a profound friendship, each trusting the other with pieces of their own fractured histories. In his eyes, she sees both the healer's hope and the mourner's pain. When he watches her laugh with the hotel staff, his own guarded smile betrays relief and admiration. He becomes more than a caretaker of her body. He emerges as a guardian of her spirit, learning from her bravery to embrace life's fleeting gifts even as he confronts his own regrets. The hotel's maitre d', initially reserved and formal, softens under her gaze into a man who dared to dream in his youth but buried those dreams beneath the weight of responsibility. In one tender exchange, she urges him to recall the violin lessons he abandoned long ago, and we sense the thrill and terror of rediscovering a buried passion. His transformation unfolds in small gestures, a misplaced chord remembered, a note that falters then rises strong. Through her encouragement, he recaptures something essential about himself, reminding us that sometimes we need another's belief to rekindle our own. A playful spark emerges in the relationship she forms with the concierge's protégé, a bright-eyed assistant who sees in her an emblem of hope and generosity. Their banter dances between humor and heart. She teases him about his starched uniform. He marvels at her willingness to drop pretenses. In their fleeting interactions, she slips him a piece of advice that resonates far beyond the hotel lobby, and he gifts her a keepsake that binds him to her memory. Their dynamic underscores a theme central to her character: that small acts of kindness can reverberate indefinitely, shaping lives in ways neither giver nor receiver can fully predict. Then there is the chef, stoic, exacting, his world defined by recipes perfected through trial and error. At first, he regards her extravagance with polite detachment, his silence a facade honed over countless dinners. Yet under her gaze, his walls fracture. With every enthusiastic nod at a delectable creation, he rediscovers the thrill of creation itself. In one poignant scene, she describes her childhood belief that even buttered toast held the promise of wonder, and he laughs, not just at the memory, but at the realization that wonder can be found in the simplest pleasures. He begins to conjure desserts that transcend mere sweetness, infusing each plate with artistry that mirrors her unquenchable zest for life. Amid these relationships, her bond with her loyal friend back home, warm-hearted, pragmatic, the one she calls when laughter turns to tears, reveals her roots and the life she cherishes. Their phone conversations blend humor and heartbreak, each line delivered with the familiarity of shared history. In her friend's voice, she finds both solace and urgency, a gentle plea to return, to rejoin the rhythms of a world she briefly abandoned. Through these calls, we see how her journey reshapes not only herself but the threads that connect her to those she loves. She returns from the depths of extravagance armed with stories and images, but she also carries home the understanding that real wealth resides in human connection. Her relationship with her aunt, revealed through letters and phone calls, grounds her in familial love that transcends circumstances. Though they never share the screen until the story's later stages, their bond pulses through her choices. In moments of doubt, when the glittering hotel corridors threaten to consume her, she recalls her aunt's gentle wisdom, that home is where one's heart finds rest. This maternal influence infuses her decisions with a sense of balance, guiding her toward generosity not just for strangers, but for herself. Her aunt's presence, though unseen for much of the narrative, shapes her arc indelibly. The cinematography here swells with crests of crashing waves and shafts of dawn breaking through mist, visual language that evokes both peril and promise. Critics have been divided on this bold departure from the hotel's gilded confines. Some hail it as a poetic leap that elevates the story into mythic territory. Others feel it overreaches, injecting a note of melodrama into an otherwise grounded narrative. Yet even detractors concede that the sequence's emotional core, reunion with the woman whose absence shaped her own life, strikes a resonant chord. The culmination of this reunion scene reads like a carefully composed symphony of tears and laughter. As mother and daughter embrace, their faces etched with years of longing and regret, the film invites viewers to feel the full spectrum of human emotion: sorrow for time lost, joy in rediscovery, hope for futures unwritten. It is in this moment that the film's thematic richness blooms fully, an exploration of what it means to reclaim agency over one's story, to bridge generational divides, and to find healing in both forgiveness and adventure. The critical consensus accords high praise to the film's ability to weave these threads without succumbing to sentimentality, crafting instead a tapestry of authentic, lived-in feeling. Beyond the narrative, the film's use of sound and music has drawn its share of acclaim. Danny Elfman's score, soaring yet intimate, serves as an emotional counterpoint to the on-screen action. From the lilting piano motif that accompanies her earliest steps of defiance, to the swelling orchestration that heralds her final reconciliation, the music shapes the viewer's emotional journey with finesse. Critics highlight how the score never overwhelms the scenes but rather converses with them, accentuating their meaning rather than dictating it. Coupled with sound design that blends ambient whispers of wind and sea with the clink of fine china and the hum of distant conversations, the film creates an immersive soundscape that deepens its resonance. Editing choices, too, contribute significantly to the film's impact. The decision to linger on moments of silence, The catch of her breath as the doctor gives his verdict, the pause before her first extravagant meal, has been commended for granting audiences the space to feel along with her. Conversely, the brisk pacing of montage sequences, her whirlwind exploration of the hotel's wonders, conveys the exhilaration of her new outlook. This rhythmic interplay of speed and stillness mirrors the film's central dialectic between savoring life and propelling oneself toward new horizons. Critics often point to this editorial rhythm as a rarely heard heartbeat that distinguishes the film from more formulaic offerings. Upon its release, the film's reception reflected the depth of its artistry. Box office figures, while solid, did not skyrocket the way those of mainstream blockbusters might. Yet word of mouth proved the catalyst for its enduring legacy. Audiences found themselves recommending the film not for its spectacle but for its warm-hearted wisdom. In countless online discussions, viewers shared personal stories of how the film inspired them to take risks, to book that long-postponed trip, to reconnect with estranged family, to find joy in small rituals once taken for granted. This grassroots resonance spoke to the film's thematic potency, that a story of personal transformation could spark real change in the lives of its audience. In academic circles, the film soon became a staple of courses on contemporary cinema, noted for its deft blending of genre conventions. Part romance, part comedy, part adventure, part family drama. Scholars examined how the film navigates issues of class and privilege, using luxury settings not merely as escapism but as crucibles for genuine human connection. Feminist critics, in particular, celebrated the heroine's agency and refusal to be defined by illness or social expectations. The film's willingness to delve into mortality without collapsing into despair earned it a place alongside other modern works that engage existential themes with heart rather than didacticism. Years after its premiere, the film's milestones continue to echo. Anniversary screenings often include Q&A sessions in which cast and crew share anecdotes about the production's challenges and triumphs, reminding audiences that the film's magic emerged from countless acts of collaboration and creative risk. Retrospectives highlight how the film's production design, from the Baroque splendor of the hotel to the weathered authenticity of the coastal village, creates immersive worlds that feel both fantastical and lived in. Each revisitation reveals new layers, underscoring the film's richly textured approach to storytelling. In the end, the movie's most enduring critical achievement may lie in its capacity to merge personal and universal, to tell a story both intimate and expansive. Its significant events, the diagnosis that shatters comfort, the indulgent sojourn that rekindles wonder, the return home that weaves past and present, the voyage that bridges family chasms, serve as guideposts along a journey that challenges viewers to reconsider their own relationship with time, joy, and connection. The film does not preach, it invites. It does not offer simplistic answers, it celebrates the complexity of life's choices. And through its thematic and emotional resonance, it reminds us that every scene, every note, every quiet moment between breaths can contribute to a narrative greater than the sum of its parts.